everybody. Well, thank you very much, John. That's brilliant. Thank you so much to HIE and Invest for inviting me up here. I've only been in this role for 3 months, so I'm still finding my feet. But I'm trying to spend as much time as possible getting around Scotland and discovering how diverse Scotland really is. Last week we were in Inverness. The month before I was in Aberdeen, and I'm here in Shetland today, which is just fantastic. I had to pick a subject, so I picked the subject of circular economy. I just thought in some ways that might kind of perhaps encapsulate a number of the issues that we all kind of face. So that's what I've chosen, just to give you a quick 10 minutes about. The first bit is just to maybe tell you a little bit about myself, and this is some of the work of kind of collective architecture. And I have rewritten this PowerPoint 4 or 5 times already. I've been up here 2 days and discovering just so much and learning so much. But circular economy, I think my interest in that began with a kind of study of structures, and these are just 2 examples of that, and how you may use structures in a different way. One of them is the water towers around the peripheral estates in Glasgow, and how we use those in a kind of social way, as well as a way of marking territory or becoming landmarks for these communities within Glasgow. The other one is the Titan Crane and Clyde Bank, which they used to build the QE2 and the Queen Mary, and we were able to repurpose that into a kind of a museum observatory platform, and it has now become a symbol for regeneration within Clyde Bank. And that kind of, I suppose, set off my kind of interest in the circular economy. And this is probably the closest example I could find to the work that perhaps you might do here. And this is on an island. This is on the island of Bute, which is perhaps not quite as remote as Shetland. But there we were able to, this is the Bute Recycling Centre, but we were able to construct this building from, I think, almost 70%, entirely materials from the island of Bute, but almost 70% of reclaimed kind of materials. And there we actually use it as an educational tool, and we also actually use it to crush materials, and we take them back in the ferries and sell them on the mainland. So all of that kind of set me up to thinking about how, you know, I might think about the circular economy. And we together with my colleague Tom, who's here and now works at Best, you know, we were commissioned to travel around Scotland and brief small, medium enterprises, construction professionals, and how they could embed circular ideas into their work. And it very much relates to the way that we think about the work stages, and how we think of work stages in a circular manner rather than a linear manner. It's much more important for us to think about post-occupancy evaluation and how that then feeds into the way that we approach design, rather than starting straight from the kind of commission. So those ideas we've been thinking about an awful lot, and I'm also added this slide in because we are working in the Bridge of Nyes, which is another deep water port in Aberdeen, and the energy transition zone there, and it's similar things that we're talking about there, and we're working out a retrofit circular toolkit so that they can repurpose the industrial sheds around the Bridge of Nyes for the massive wind farms that they're going to have to construct in the North Sea. So it's very kind of similar to yourself. But again, that's looking at embodied carbon and the ways that RICS and surveyors measure embodied carbon, and also those ideas, different ideas about the way that you build up in a layering manner, the way that you detail buildings so that it becomes easy to deconstruct or adapt. It's like long life, loose fit approaches to the circular economy. And then I added this in because I've completely been blown away and completely realised how much of an urban background I come from. And the conversations I've been having with all the people here on Shetland has begun to realise that all the issues that we kind of face are very, very similar. I mean, the things that we talk about and that we're having to tackle in the Central Belt are just the same kind of issues that you're tackling here, but it's in a completely different manner. It seems to me that we just seem to have some national policy set across Scotland, and somehow that one idea, one approach must fit all. And really, this has become almost the tagline to our kind of trip up here, is that one size does not fit all. And I'm having to take these messages back to the RIAS in Edinburgh and find ways of tackling issues in different ways across the whole of Scotland itself. A good example of that is probably the circular economy bill, which has been going through the Scottish Government at the moment, which we have been consulting on, and as the consultation period has come to an end. It's 2 things. There's the circular economy bill, which is running through Scottish Government, but also there's a circular economy route map. And at the RIAS, we have been spending a lot of time consulting with the Scottish Government on that to such an extent, and these just gives you an idea of it. It's full of the usual stuff that you might expect in relation to circular economy, reuse, recycle at the last option. But what we kind of discovered is within the circular economy bill, the construction industry is actually not even mentioned. So in actual fact, not to mention that within the bill is almost catastrophic, considering that 40% of all waste does come from the construction industry, but it does not get mentioned. It's mentioned quite strongly within the route map, but not in the bill itself, which is the primary kind of piece of legislation. So we've written to Lorna, Lorna Slater, and she has actually come back with us and complaining about this, and she wants to meet us and talk about that. So that is part of the reasons that I'm kind of like traveling around, because I need to gather different opinions, and I need to be able to take those to Lorna Slater, who's the Minister for Circular Economy at the Scottish Government, and start to put these arguments that have been developing here. This one size does not fit all is a really kind of good starting point for that. So we've got to take those to Lorna Slater, and these are just some of the issues that we've been kind of going. I have to put my spectacles on to kind of read that. I was getting away without it for a while there. But I mean, these are just some of the kind of headings that we used in our consultation. And it's the same things that I'm kind of like discovering as I talk to everybody here. Awareness now, we're kind of past that point. We're all kind of aware of this. We want to move on and actually just start tackling issues. Strategic interventions, of course, there's so many strategic interventions, but they're going to be different in a place like Shetland as they are to a place in Glasgow. Skills and training, we've already talked about how that is such a huge issue here, and I spent a late morning in the Anderson High School talking to some of the children, trying to encourage them or think about why they would actually look at the construction as a job in the future. And so that, and speaking to the architects here as well, the amount of similar sort of issues that we face in Glasgow are just really quite kind of like really struck home to us. And Passive House, and I've really been struck at that, and there's a lot of Passive House demonstrations here, and I am a Passive House designer, but I am kind of aware that you almost have a culture of building here that actually tackles Passive House in a different way and understand its Passive House principles that are important, not necessarily getting that badge itself. So these are different approaches to that what we'll have in the Central Belt. And sustainable procurement, again, that's all probably the most important issue that we've kind of come across here. The issues that we face in procurement are just almost exactly the same. We face big issues that is done in an unfair manner. Cost seems to drive almost actually everything we do. We've started lobbying the Scottish Government in terms of meat, which is the most economically advantageous tender. And it's just cost that seems to drive all the decisions that are kind of made, and not necessarily to do with perhaps like qualitative issues such as local employment, those kind of ideas which form the important and the important outcomes of a project. The fact that the people who live in the place are more likely to be able to design or come up with better solutions, which is what I'm discovering here now, than necessarily the people who actually come from elsewhere. People from elsewhere can, of course, I'm going a wee bit off piece now here, and I realise I've only got 10 minutes, can obviously bring a lot of knowledge and expertise, but it's local knowledge. Nothing kind of meets that whatsoever. So I'm kind of aware of all that, and research, data and evidence. These are all the kind of points that we've put to the local government. We realise Best are just so good at these things. So we're realising that we share issues across Scotland. There's islands, there's urban communities, rural communities and towns. People talk about Scotland as being a nation of towns. So we have to kind of like find ways of bringing together all of these things into this kind of idea that you maybe have one national kind of approach, but it does not fit all. And a wee bit about the RIAS itself. We have 6 chapters. I'm kind of becoming more aware that Shetland is attached to our Highlands and Islands Architectural Association. I'm obviously more attached to the Glasgow Institute of Architects, but we're also now realising that Aberdeen in some respects is perhaps the stronger link because of the ferry connection and the opportunities that might lie there to tie up with some of the schools of architecture at that point there. So I'm gathering all these points of view, and they are very different. the work we're doing in Edinburgh, Glasgow, because it's denser, we're able to start thinking about gathering these material hubs where we can start to gather materials together and we can recycle those in a manner. That's maybe not as possible here in Shetland, but there's also interesting ways of collaborating and working together to solve some of these kind of issues. It's just in a slightly different way, more spread out, we're much more dense. But I'm also aware that the two of our chapters, which is one is the Highlands and Islands Architectural Association and the Glasgow one, we more or less take up the whole of the West. We don't more or less, we do take up the whole of the west coast of Scotland. And we have similar issues in that some of the islands off of Argyll, this is Gia, which is off of the Mull of Kintyre, are quite remote as well. And I've been doing work there with the Isle of Gia, and I think we're just about through, but we've managed to secure funding for 5 affordable houses. And to build 5 affordable houses in Gia is just going to make so much difference to the local economy and get people living there again. And that usually I will deal with perhaps 200 or 300 houses in the peripheral estates of Glasgow. It's those 5 homes that actually bring us more joy and are more important. So we're trying to understand scale and place. And something else I just want to highlight is that this event is happening right now, which is a place-based circular economy planning development. That is happening in Shetland between October and March. And that is the Zero Waste Scotland, and they are actually having a look at how you can embed circular ideas into place, because it is very specific, your own issues, albeit the issues across the whole of Scotland are similar, but they are different. So that event's happening right now, and I really encourage everybody to get involved. There's perhaps, they've split up into sectors, and you can see there's energy, food and drink, tourism, construction, space, creative industries. But in brackets are the kind of actions that are happening that Zero Waste Scotland are building up. And as you can see, there's a big zero against construction. So I really think that people have to start kind of taking some ideas to Zero Waste Scotland and get involved in this activity that's going to kind of happen now. I don't know if that's 10 minutes. Is that... About 10 minutes. I could go on a bit more and start reading out some of these texts and things that are there, but they're there for you to read right now. So I'll draw a conclusion there and hopefully chucked in a few ideas. But for me, it's that one thing that's come out of our kind of conversations that I've been having here in Shetland is that one size does not fit all. So thank you very much.